بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف المرسلين أما بعد. So, from the lizard's hole to the dragon's den. Everybody here knows what a lizard's hole is, right? No, we don't. Who here has ever seen a lizard's hole? You have? You've seen a lizard's hole? There you go, right? Okay. But where do lizards burrow? Anywhere. They hide, right? This idea, this hadith from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you will follow those who came before you, even if they were to go into the hole of a lizard. There's something about a metaphor that is so powerful. When it comes from the best of creation, when it comes from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's more than just a figure of speech. It's a neural model now. Something that guides our behavior even. That's why we love stories so much, right? Who here knows what a dragon's den is? Any Lord of the Rings fans? Right? Ever since we were young, we hear these stories of a dragon. And a dragon protects what? Wealth and riches, right? Like something good behind the dragon. Just like the Imam said today. He said that if you can unlock, I'm paraphrasing, of course, if you can unlock spirituality, if you can connect to Allah, there is so much with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَهَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. If we achieve that ihsan, like the speakers talked about earlier, you get nothing but goodness. However, these metaphors sometimes stop short too. We just use them as in fact, this metaphor comes from Dr. Malik Badri's book, The Dilemma of the Muslim Psychologist, right? Everybody's familiar with that, right? That's why on this left side, you can notice that's the book cover. And I highlighted the word abandon. Because what he's saying is sometimes as Muslims, we want to follow the predecessors, even though they don't follow themselves. They've abandoned so many things when it comes to psychology, and we want to pick that up. It's like we're picking up their garbage. It didn't even work for them. It's going to work for us. And we've got so much more. We have Allah. We have the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have one metaphor that's withstood the test of time, and it's constantly repeated. Every one of us here believes in the hadith, believes in the metaphor, and we've never seen a lizard's hole. But we understand what it means, which means what? You can use something to understand something else, even though you've never seen either. We can imagine a dragon's den. We've never seen one because it doesn't exist. We can understand the concept, the sense, and the reference of a lizard's hole, right? Because it connects to us somehow. We all know what it's like to turn on their phone during a speech, right? We all know that feeling, right? We all know what it's like to burrow sometimes, to kind of cower away. You come, you say salam alaikum to somebody, they don't reciprocate. You get that feeling. And so there's all these metaphors and these examples that we could be using. Today, I want to use the one from the lizard's hole, and I want to start replacing that with, not replacing, a'udhu billah. I want to use the dragon's den as another metaphor of where we're going. Because we're going somewhere out of this lizard's hole in front of a massive foe. Next slide. But I'm not using the dragon as in, I am death. Not that kind of dragon. I'm using the dragon's den as in Shark's Tank. And of course, Americans always have a different term for everything, right? We got kilometers all over the world. You guys got miles. You know that joke, right? So you guys call it Shark Tank. Are you familiar with this? Show of hands. Who knows what this is? Okay. You've watched this before? So last night, I'm flipping the channels. Guess what shows up? Shark Tank. What do? I get into my paralysis by analysis. What am I trying to do? Well, I'm a psychologist, right? I try to predict behavior, predict and explain it. Why? So I can manipulate. So I can transform. All right. So I'm watching. I'm like, nope. Right when they'd come in, no, they're not going to give this person. Nope, they're not going to give this person. One person came up like, this specific person is going to give it. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly why, because you'll be like, that's such a bias. Why would you think that way? But I was right. So is it still a bias if I'm right? Because Who said yes? All right, right? You shouldn't have it to begin with. But I don't know. We hear a lot of stereotypes about Americans. And I drove from Chicago here, and I saw a lot of American flags. My voice from Chicago told me something about if you see an American flag, too many American flags in front of the houses, just keep going. Okay? I mean, they told me, they said, you probably won't have to worry about it, but we will. Okay. See this metaphor? That's a different type of metaphor. You know what I'm talking about. I don't even have to say it. This type of Shark Tank, though, you would think that the bottom line is all that matters, right? In a market economy, it's all about the money. What happens when you make so much money that it's not about the money anymore? That's when personal values start kicking in from a capitalistic point of view. Values and ethics only become an issue after the money's been made. It's like survival, then ethics and values. But as Muslims, what do we start with? Ethics and values first, middle, and end. So as we get out of this dragon's den, out of this lizard's hole, and we move into the future, and we have so many different theorists and scholars and groups, and there'll probably be 10 more Muslim mental health conferences. Will we do it together, like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "Kal bunyan al marsus," or will we keep fighting each other to get back into this lizard's hole? Will we fight for the scraps of colonizers? Is this too political? I have a PhD in social work. It's my academic duty to challenge status quo, right? And I'm a psychologist, and I train imams to become psychologists, right? So there's so much that I can be talking about. I would just rather speak about two metaphors. This one, the brick wall metaphor, and the lizard's hole metaphor, in hopes that we start looking at this metaphor that the Prophet ﷺ said, the believers are like a brick wall, reinforcing one another. How many of you have ever seen a brick wall? Where was the last time you saw a brick wall, though? Is it where? These are not brick. Somewhere, right? The last time I saw a brick wall was in Palestine. But look, the metaphor still stands today. Lizard's hole or brick wall. Because you can extend the understanding, right? Because imagine if you took a literal definition of it only, like a brick wall. Okay, it's still a metaphor, but you took a limited version of the metaphor itself. Now you would say a brick wall does what? What does a brick wall do? What else? Separates. Whoa. That's an American view. Yes, definitely. Yes, absolutely. Right? That's awesome. Thank you for saying that. What else does a brick wall do? Defends. Holds up. Right? Protects. So there's so many different applications now. If you just took the literal definition, you're missing out on so much more. There's something so profound about a metaphor that it processes in the brain differently than literal speech. Cognitive linguistics. You know, with the rise of cognitive therapy and all that, came cognitive linguistics as well. So the old dudes from Freudianism and all that, not only did they not get it right, I mean, sorry if anybody's a loyalist, I'm a CBT loyalist, so I like to think of myself as the convert child of of CBT grandparents, right? I'm trying to recolonize CBT, taking it back to the Muslims. But the whole idea is cognitive linguistics, understanding at the cognitive basis of behavior, at the deeper levels, is where we all need to take psychology. Islam's already there. We need to start elevating psychology so it's doing better for people. Because Allah knows the field of psychology is in a state of crisis. I'm not just talking about the APA apology. Who here has seen the apology? You're kidding me. All right, let's get through the slide because I really got to show you that. You know, the American Psychological Association has apologized for its, I don't know what they said, I say their errors by omission and commission, and apologize to people of color in the United States, especially Black people, as they should. Now, what's our response to that? Take, for example, people who have not experienced racism, the ones that can hide behind their skin. We're like, see, oh, that's awesome, that's great. But what about the actual victims? I'm going to say something, like it or not. It's like Israel apologizing to Palestinians. I'm Palestinian. I've seen the oppression head front. I know what it's like. Do I know what it's like to be a person of color in the United States? Absolutely not. I can't even pretend to think. But what I can say is brick wall. We stand side by side. Now, they apologized. I'm not saying that that's enough. But what it does is it opens up the opportunity for us to say, all right, now that you guys are sinking in your boat, join. It's not about taking the wind out of their sails anymore. It's about putting a hole in the boat. And then we extend our hand to say, you know what? We'll help you through this crisis. Now, I'm not just making up analogies here. Let's go to the next slide. And the next one. When we started this whole thing, not we as in me, Dr. Qasqas is here. See his beautiful face there? He's always the reference point. Why? There's something deeply profound. I'm not just praising him here. Wallahi. I say this everywhere. There's something deeply profound about this man and his work. And it has nothing to do with the models that he develops. In fact, half of the models that he develops, I'm going to go on YouTube and say, and we'll start a fake debate online. It'll get tons of views, right? Who wants to hear love and brotherhood? They love the enemyship. 3, good. And so it's the akhlaq. It's his akhlaq. It's the akhlaq, the ethics, the character development that not only he embodies, but he also teaches and espouses. Now, we all know in the Muslim community, there's divisions. Say the word Salafi and Sufi. Watch what happens. Right? You see that? When are we going to deal with that issue? And how are we going to deal with it? What happens when all of a sudden the theories actually start coming out? Well, we're in the next slide. We're in the science, the pre-science phase of this discipline anyway. Thomas Kuhn, Structure of Scientific Revolutions. Anybody? No? Okay. Then I'll just pretend like I read the book. There's stages to scientific revolution. It's not linear. Psychology is in a crisis. That's what I'd like to believe. These are all theoretical anyway. It's in a crisis. Why? It has not been able to deal with its racism and its discrimination. And who suffered because of it? And so something needs to change. The field of Islamic psychology has an opportunity. Okay, next slide. This is the apology, just in case those of you want to see it. There's the reference. You could see the slides later. Read it. Across the board, you're going to be like, yes. Now, you don't even have to use ChatGPT to write your paper anymore. You could just go to the apology. They've done all the research for you. Why Islamic psychology? Because of this. Why should we not follow those who came before us? Because this. All right? So what are we going to do, though? Next slide. Who guards this den? We have to answer these questions. This is really not just about practice. It's about leadership and governance. 1 minute. Yep. You know I'm not going to follow it, right? And then I'm going to make a whole argument about it. Yep. This is called civil disobedience. Teaches you right for not preparing for Jummah. Okay. What are the rules of the game? What are the rules of the game? Who's the dragon? Which dragon are we talking about anyway? When the field of Islamic psychology, if it develops, who's it going up against? Who do we have to convince? Let's just say we figured that out, okay? Then let's say we won. We got everything we want. Have we created new enemies? New misunderstandings? Do we become the new tyrants? Imposing our views on everybody else? Unless we have guiding principles, we will lose, even if we win. كالبنيان المرصوص. But reinforcing and supporting each other with akhlaq is essential. Next slide. And Dr. Qasqas and his team has already done this amazing extrapolation from the books. I like to take the shortcut. I go straight to Imam Nawawi. Imam Nawawi talks about Sheikh Zayd, Ibn Abu Zayd, all of akhlaq summarized in 4 hadith. And then nifaq. So basically, in sum, akhlaq minus nifaq. Meaning what? Even if you're right, stop the debate if it's going to ruin a relationship. And this Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam promises you Jannah. Next slide. You want to know who guards the den? It's all online, the Specialty Council. So what we did as we're developing Islamic counseling psychology, you heard it here first, Islamic counseling psychology, not Islamic CBT, even though I'm writing a book on that, not Islamic clinical psychology, not Islamic psychology for serious disorders. Where do I get these terms from? They're all different specializations. So choose a specialization. Counseling psychology is the one, you know how it differentiates itself? It deals with racism and discrimination. APAs in crisis, they're going to turn to the counseling psychology department. Plus, you heard it this morning. What is the other APA's mission? The American Psychiatric Association. What is their first step? Hey, let's deal with what we can deal with right away. Trauma, depression, anxiety. That's what I specialize in. That's what I train my students in. And we have psychospiritual first aid for those diseases. So it's working out very well. Sometimes too well that I think I'm delusional. All right? That's why I need you, Kalbunyan al-Marsus, like a brick wall, to say, you know what? No, hold on a second. You're all over the place, man. That doesn't make sense. And then I'd say, sure, let's debate it. Let's prove it. Show me where structurally the model doesn't work. Next slide. And this is the last one too, the second last one. Of all of our predecessors in the field of psychology, would they consider your model of Islamic psychology credible? That's too hard to answer. You know why? Because now you got to think meta-perception. What do they think about us? Let me ask you a different question. How many of these guys would be canceled today? And rightfully so, because of their view on religion and spirituality. So why do you want to follow them? Why back into the lizard's hole? Look at the evidence. Don't look at the people. This is a quote that some people may not like that I say it. لا يعرف الحق بالرجال يعرف الرجال بالحق. You don't know true people, true men. You don't know the truth through men. You know men through truth, and by extension, like not strong women. I meant like, you know what I mean by men. It's a metaphor. Okay. Next slide. So I have this thing I'm calling the fourth approach, just to get on the scene, because you have these different approaches to Islamic psychology. I call mine the convert approach, and it's based on three essential principles. Credibility. Doesn't have to be valid, just have to be credible. Why? Because when you're pitching to these dragons, sometimes the fidelity doesn't matter anymore. As long as you follow some rules, they're okay. They look for the flexibility. But in that flexibility, it's got to be credible. But to who? If we develop all this, who are we developing it for? That's why we need ethics, akhlaq, to guide the process. Anybody here a psychologist? All right? Or becoming a psychologist, or you read the Code of Ethics, right? Who comes first, always, for a psychologist? Always, 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 always. The patient, client, or guest. We have a hospitality model, right? Then who? Then society. Then who? Then the profession. Then who? Then yourself. Okay? So imagine you build out this Islamic psychology. Why? So society can look at us well. We're being unethical. We're violating the principles. Or so the profession can look better? No, it's for the people we serve. Next slide. كالبنيان المرصوص. If we work together to help people, naturally, I believe we're going to continue on into the dragon's den. Not only will it be credible to stakeholders worldwide, but we'll actually be doing what we said we were going to do. We're going to help people. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us not to go back into the lizard's hole, but to follow the path of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.